So I am the Chief Medical Officer, the most senior medical advisor to government. And in that role, I have to advise them about medical issues now and what's going to happen in the future. So it's no surprise that a lot of people come to find me and to start talking about what disturbs them, be it bioterrorism, pandemics, obesity, or even the fact that we've become a sedentary society. So when I was asked to come and talk to you today about an inspiring idea, an idea that needs sharing, I thought long and hard. But what I want to talk to you about is actually very important, and I'm losing sleep at night. But I'm sharing it with you because there are things we can do about it. Now, I think it's quite important to point out that this doesn't work. That I am the first woman in 155 years to hold this role. So I'm not actually... Thank you. I make that point for women. I make that point because I'm not easily rattled. And the story I'm going to tell you is really a very worrying story. So I'm going to talk about antibiotic resistance. And let me take you back to when I had my first child. I got an infection of the breast while breastfeeding, mastitis. That's a bacteria. I took a course of antibiotics by mouth, orally, and hey presto, it got better. But sadly, I begin to hear about women who have bacteria infecting their breasts that are resistant. This is evolution. In practice, it happens quite easily, but then they have long, painful, tortuous disease, which is very difficult. And interestingly, bacteria like passing their resistance one to another. So it spreads. That's evolution as well. So does it matter? Well, let me tell you some statistics. In Europe, 25,000 people die a year of sepsis. That's bad infection that's gone to the blood because the drugs don't work, because of antibiotic resistance. In the States, they told us last week, a conservative estimate is 23,000 people dying each year. In Southeast Asia, one young child or baby dies every 5 minutes because of antibiotic resistance. I think that's a significant death rate. Indeed, in Europe, it's about the same as road traffic accident death rate. It's a significant cost for us in this country. The societal costs are about the same as government spends on universities and further education colleges, or to put it another way, half of what we spend on defence. This is an important area. I could argue it's an inconvenient truth, but actually, the fact that drugs don't work is a hidden truth, an invisible truth that we don't talk about. So why is it happening? It happens because we're abusing antibiotics. So we go off to doctors and ask for antibiotics, and we ask for them when they aren't needed. Coughs and colds are viruses, they don't respond to antibiotics. As doctors, we sometimes want to give patients what they want, and other times we'll correctly prescribe an antibiotic, but not respond and change it quickly enough when the results come from the lab and say it's resistant to that antibiotic you used, try this one, which it responds to. Important. If you eat meat and fish, then you would want to know that 1/3 of the countries globally use antibiotics instead of hygiene as a cheap way to fatten meat and fish up. Isn't it horrible? And as travellers, clearly we go off abroad, we pick up bugs, we take them around the place, and we bring them home. In fact, on one study, 1 in 4 Swedes going travelling came back with antibiotic-resistant bugs in their gut. So why am I worrying now, apart from the fact it's going up and up? And I'm worrying because the cupboard is bare. In the past, what we've done is when a bacteria becomes resistant to a bug, we've opened the cupboard, we've got the next antibiotic out, and we've used it. But do you know the last new class of antibiotics was discovered nearly a quarter of a century ago in 1987? We've had no new ones since then, and that cupboard is bare. Why is it bare? Well, it's bare because we haven't incentivized drug companies to develop new ones, or indeed academic researchers in universities. And if you think about it, if someone discovers a really good new antibiotic, I'd like to lock it in my cupboard and only use it to save lives. But even if I did let it out and it was used everywhere, generally, most of you won't even have an antibiotic for a week in the year. Whereas if you have high blood pressure or diabetes or high cholesterol, you'll take a tablet every day for the rest of your life. No prizes for seeing where the money is for the shareholders of pharma companies and why we have an empty pipeline. But we can do something about it. I'm working with our government and governments worldwide to think of new ways to incentivize that research. It is so severe that our government is putting it on our risk register alongside climate change, terrorism, and a flu pandemic. And we can do things ourselves. We can do little things that matter. Because what we've lost is hygiene. I told you about animals and how antibiotics are much cheaper than doing hygiene. Well, we're not very good at it. We've had to rediscover it in our hospitals, and we need to rediscover it as individuals. These posters, which you see everywhere, may be boring, but do you know, half of men don't wash their hands after going to the lavatory. Now, you might think that doesn't matter, but that takes the bugs from the bum or the prick to the tap, the door handle, and then out potentially to food and friends. And if one of them has reduced immunity, perhaps diabetes, perhaps rheumatic disease, then they might catch it. And if it's an antibiotic-resistant bug that went on that journey from the hand right through to the food, then that person becomes a patient who may be very ill. Hygiene is really important. I never thought I'd end up talking to 4,500 people about washing your hands and my hands. We have to take this seriously. It is serious because, you know, I've told you the statistics, they're quite clear. But if we don't preserve the antibiotics we've got and develop new antibiotics, we're going to have a problem. And the problem, though it's already here, is going to get steadily worse. And modern medicine, as we know it, is not going to be there. We need to make sure we use the right antibiotics. When you're prescribed them, and I am too, we must take the right dose for the right length of time, but only take them when we need them. We need to get like the the London black cab driver who said to me when I had a cough in the winter, "Oh, love, you should go to your GP." And then a bit later said, "But you know, you probably don't want an antibiotic because you've probably got a virus." We need to preserve what we've got, because without effective antibiotics, and that's the way we're going, we won't have good modern cancer treatment. We won't have transplants. Premature babies will get sepsis and die instead of rescuing them. Even routine operations, like hip operations, will not be done easily because every patient with a routine hip operation has antibiotics, let alone the people who have immune systems which make them prone to infection and not fighting it off. This is very serious, and we need to get this right for our children and our grandchildren going forwards. Now, I am working with our government, with the World Health Organization and other governments to try and develop the ideas to incentivize research. But what I really need is for you to go out there and stop this being a hidden truth. The drugs don't work. Those bugs are clever. And if we don't do something about it, we will have a problem. And I believe we can be cleverer than the bugs. So please, tell everyone about this, spread the idea, spread the issues, help me raise awareness, and help preserve the antibiotics we've got, and put pressure on governments around the world to get this right. Thank you so much.